2 parts soil, 1 part peat moss, 1 part perlite. That's important, and it will make so much more sense by the end of this podcast. All right, let's get started. Welcome back, everyone. This is Classic Homesteading Practices, and today we are going to be talking about soil. Now go with me on this journey. You're walking through the aisles getting ready to pick out your soil, thinking about all the vegetables and flowers you're going to grow when you pause and see that there's more than one kind of soil. There's garden soil, potting soil, topsoil, and even garden bed soil. And how is there so many different brands, and which one should you choose from? This episode is to help you figure out which soil is best for you and for you to see if there is a real difference between any of these bags of dirt. And before we start, let's set our brains in the right direction and think of dirt and soil as 2 different things. Soil is just an ingredient of dirt. It is 1 part of the entire bag. There is nothing added to it, it's just soil. While dirt is a mixture of multiple parts with the soil and peat moss and wood shavings, which are part of water retention, or perlite and rocks or sand, which help with drainage. These ingredients are parts of putting a dirt mix together so that your plants can be given a better place to grow with it, to help the roots grow better or hold water, or for the soil to have drainage when it rains too much. The ingredients put into these dirt mixes is why gardeners pick specific brands and stick with them. Now, let's talk about the difference between potting soil, garden soil, and topsoil mainly. And the biggest difference is what's mixed in these bags. To start with, let's go with the basic of dirts, and that is topsoil, which only has soil in it. It's scraped from the surface of the ground, and all the large debris like rocks, branches, mulch are sifted out before being packaged. This is why topsoil bags are fairly dense, because the most broken down bits of the ground that like to pack themselves together and make rock hard dirt, there's nothing really there to help break it apart, like little bits of rocks or sand, unless it's already in that topsoil. Which is why when you pick up your soil from a local topsoil dealer, ask them if they know what's in that soil. If there's clay or sand, whether it's been from a forest or a field. The difference from where it was dug up can help you to know if the soil will help with drainage or if it's just going to add a problem to your backyard. Personally, when I buy topsoil, I like to have it from a forest because the soil is usually made up of decomposing trees, leaves, and a lot more plant matter, where there is a lot more shade and the absorption of this soil is usually nicer. Unlike getting topsoil from a field or a dirt work area where the plant matter is usually made up of grass and the sun has been beating down constantly, pounding down on the soil. The soil is less likely to have plant matter in it that would help with drainage, and the water retention would only be good enough for shallow roots for the first year of planting. Now, on the opposite of the spectrum would be bagged potting soil. And the reason why I wanted to switch over to these is to show the drastic difference between potting soil and topsoil and their ingredients. While topsoil is just purely soil from the ground, potting soil is topsoil plus extra. If you flip over your potting soil mix bag at your local grocery store, the first ingredient is usually topsoil, or they will say local forest soil, which is just, again, topsoil, which made me go, well, why should I pay so much for this stuff what's the scam? And the truth is, you're paying for the ingredients listed with the topsoil. You're paying for the peat moss that's included, the perlite, the extra fertilizer, and sometimes they'll throw in mulch with it as well. You're paying for the quality of the ingredients or how finely milled the potting soil is. And yes, it is very different. And there is a difference between the brands themselves and the different soils that are sold there. A lot of people stand by using potting soil for seedlings because of how fine and airy the dirt is, which makes it easier for baby roots to grow in. And that's because of the potting soil it's made of, which is why there's a higher price point. Now, do I think it's a pile of horse shit? Ooh. Sorry for little ears. To still pay for a high price? Yes. Especially when it's pennies on the dollar. When you're buying your bulk mix things and then putting the parts together. You can just go and do that on a smaller scale for yourself and make your own dirt. But that's just my opinion. And maybe there's more to it than the simple farmer's thinking. With that, I'll talk last about garden soil, which is topsoil mixed with peat moss or a wood mulch to add drainage or water retention. Those are the only ingredients making up most garden mix. So please go to the store and look at the back of the bag. If you find more than 2 ingredients, I will be surprised and happy that that garden mix did it. Usually there is going to be you'll find more chunks in it. The garden soil is going to be a little bit rougher. There will be chunks of wood, sticks, or some rocks in there. It may have fungus growing in it, which means the mix is still developing, or it was wet when they packaged the garden mix. Though some garden mixes are finer and fluffier than others, just be aware when you purchase a garden mix, the texture will be different than potting mix, but have much better drainage and a better feel than topsoil. It's mid-tier, which isn't a bad thing, far from it actually. I tell you this to just let you know what to expect for your first gardening experience. Now Now, after the first year, your dirt will change. The composition is going to be different because roots, plant matter, will be integrated into the dirt. So depending on your dirt, it may be better than when it started. If you top dress it with composted manure after the end of the year, or you mulch with straw throughout the year, it will be better because you are putting plant matter or organic material into it. You are making that soil better. And then at the end of the year, instead of pulling everything out, instead of pulling out all your dead plants after you've harvested your fruits and vegetables, go ahead and turn all that dead plant matter into your soil and let it decompose into the dirt to add more nutrients to it for the next year. This is basically self-fertilizing the dirt, and it preps for next year for plants for next spring. And it's worked for me for a very long time. I love doing this. To be honest, I have used a lot of different soils throughout my gardening experience, and while there are some differences between them, dirt is just that, dirt. Whether it's bought in a bag or the stuff in your backyard, both can be the same quality or better over the other. That's kind of the point of buying dirt, is either you're trying to make your soil better or you're replenishing it and giving yourself more space, unless you are doing a garden bed planting style. And then, you're going to be getting more garden dirt in order to further extend your gardening abilities. But Whether the quality is good or bad depends on where you're living at. I once lived in a place so fertile and spongy that it only took throwing the seeds down on the ground in order to grow, while now in our new home, there is an inch of clay on our soil that needs a lot of care before I even think about direct sowing. And personally, with my planting style this year, I definitely made a mistake, and I'm partly regretting. And that happens. I went and bought 6 bags of cheap potting soil and started my garden too early. We just moved to a new state involuntarily. And the growing season is much sooner than what I had. Alaska versus this new area, 2 completely different monsters. And I kind of love that, but I'm missing my home. I'm not going to lie. And because they don't experience snow, though, just rain, I decided to plant onions. And however, the rain has been so intense right now, and the soil has spores and fungus growing crazily through my garden pots. And while my onions are still doing fine, they could be doing better. I could have made my own soil that would have been cheaper and possibly less fungus filled if I hadn't jumped the gun. So my advice for this is don't start the garden too early outside your growing season until you've played around in it this season. Accept the learning curve that comes with gardening. It's not you. It's the crazy that comes with learning new things in our uncontrolled environment called outside. And the last bit of advice is make your own dirt mix. Because the soil companies do it, you can too. You have the ingredients at your local stores. There is mulch there is perlite, there is coconut coir, there is topsoil. The only thing is just learning what to use as the ingredients. And I'm going to give you an ingredient list. This is how you make dirt. 2 parts topsoil, 1 part peat moss, 1 part perlite. Nutrition from the soil, drainage from the perlite, water retention from the peat moss. All right, I hope this was helpful for you, and may you be prepared for anything. Goodbye, guys.